Hey guys, Mike here. I have some really groundbreaking news I want to share with you, linking heart disease with dysbiosis of the blood. That's right, I said dysbiosis of the blood, meaning bacterial imbalances in the bloodstream are correlated with poor cardiovascular disease prognosis. Now, before we dive into the details, I want to give you a little bit of historical background. First, you need to understand that endotoxin, or the gram-negative bacteria found in the intestine, has commonly been linked to pro-inflammatory type conditions, namely cardiovascular disease, diabetes, and obesity. Now, what I want to do is discuss a little bit more specifically on the topic of traditional cardiovascular disease and its association and possible historical context with respect to microbes. So despite this huge progress in traditional heart disease risk factor reduction over the last several decades, the condition remains to be the leading cause of mortality in the United States of America and throughout many developing countries. So historical and epidemiological data have supported the notion or the hypothesis that microorganism burden initiates and precedes cardiovascular disease development. Now, interestingly, this hypothesis has also been linked to diabetes, going back to Dr. Pickup back in the 1970s, which showed that cholera was actually linked with type 2 diabetes. Now, anyway, this strong link between, for example, periodontal disease, chlamydia, and heart disease is one such example. And along these lines, a recent study, this was 2 years ago, correlated bacterial genes present in the oral mucosa with bacterial genes inside the atherosclerotic plaque. So these samples, there was similar bacterial DNA in both samples in the oral mucosa and in the plaque. And this was one of the first studies really connecting bacteria common to both the oral cavity and also the intestine and the atherosclerotic plaque. Now, this suggests that atherosclerotic plaque microbiota may be derived from the oral cavity and or the gut, meaning that leaky gut or periodontal disease or dysbiosis of the mouth may precede atherosclerotic plaque formation, and it by in some way contributing to the innate immune system activation and the upregulation of inflammatory type pathways that are associated with heart disease and oxidized LDL formation and atherosclerotic plaque formation. Now, as I said earlier, there's many other similar studies which have linked increased blood levels of the bacterial cell wall appendage, which we know to be called endotoxin, with metabolic dysfunction such as type 2 diabetes and prediabetes, obesity, and carotid artery atherosclerosis formation. Now, for the most groundbreaking study just published in the Public Library of Science Biology, a French group quantified a highly specific bacterial DNA marker known as the 16S ribosomal DNA gene sequence in the bloodstream of some 3,936 participants of the DESSER study, which stands for the Data from Epidemiological Study on the Insulin-Resistant Syndrome. Now, the conclusion of this large cohort study was that dysbiosis, or bacterial imbalances in the bloodstream, predicted poor cardiovascular prognosis, meaning heart disease and fatal cardiovascular events. Now, more specifically, poor prognosis was associated with increased proportion of bacteria belonging to the phylum Proteobacteria, which Proteobacteria, the bacteria belonging to this phylum, harbor endotoxin, meaning all the bacteria such as E. coli, other species, Salmonella, cholera, and Helicobacter pylori, they all have endotoxin. So meaning that increased blood levels of endotoxin-containing bacteria are associated with poor cardiovascular disease outcomes. Now, interestingly, many other similar studies, as I have shown earlier, have also correlated increased blood levels of endotoxin-carrying bacteria with heart disease. So what can you do about this? How can you prevent this postprandial increase in endotoxin? Well, a moderate to low-fat diet, particularly a high-fiber diet, is associated with reduced postprandial absorption of endotoxin. Prebiotic fiber, namely inulin, which is a great fiber source, has ample data on it, specifically in the context of endotoxin inhibition from the intestine. Increased bifidobacterium strains such as bifidobacterium longum, bifidobacterium lactis have been shown to prevent endotoxin absorption. And the probiotic yeast, Saccharomyces boulardii, has been shown in many studies to actually prevent endotoxin absorption and reduce inflammation in the gut by increasing interleukin 10. Herbs such as resveratrol, curcumin, berberine, and pterostilbene. And also there's great data on oral immunoglobulins. You can stay tuned here. I have a book that's coming out, a 250-page book that with over 1,000 references is going to expand on the story in much more detail and unravel this endotoxin connection between chronic disease. So for more information, you can go to mikemutzel.com/getscience, and I hope you stay tuned with us. We will talk with you later. Thank you so much.